In 1896, Tomomaru Kozaburo, a highly successful commercial photographer in Yokohama, received an order from a Boston publisher for what eventually would lead to a production of more than 1 million hand-colored Abulman prints. At a time when most publishers were using illustrations made by cheaper and faster photochemical process such as the color-type and the halftone, J.B. Millet Company used original photographs to illustrate no less than 16 different folio editions of the multi-volume Japan described and illustrated by the Japanese. Overwhelmed by the size of the order, Tomomaru Kozaburo reportedly employed more than 350 assistants to help with the printing and coloring. Welcome to The Long Roll. Welcome back to the Long Roll Podcast. I'm your host, Griff, your friendly neighborhood social media manager to the Addie Adams Workshop. I know that was a mouthful. Also, your resident Air Force photographer / I used to be a combat photographer until my knees started hurting too much / national marketing photo manager for the Air Force and Space Force. And the list goes on for what the Air Force has asked me to do. But with that, I also have an incredible guest. Let's not make it about me. Not guest, host. All right.
Wow. I have been demoted, apparently, officially on the podcast. I'm Janiqua, your resident Air Force photographer. I work at Airman Magazine and just all around worldwide punk ass. And so that's what we're doing today.
I love it. Yes, I think what we need to start doing, because, I struggled 10 seconds before with trying to do this intro. Like, I forgot that we've even done close to 30 episodes. But I think I can appreciate, and you can too, is from here on out, we'll just press record, and whatever the first recording is, we're going to own it.
We'll just go with it. Yeah. No mistakes, only lessons.
No, yeah.
As long as we're learning, we're winning. Wait, we're not losing?
The audience will dictate that. The audience, let us know. Let us know.
In the comments.
More than in the comments. And, don't tell my mom. Anyways, so ridiculousness to the side. I want to jump into the guest that we have this week. It's a big deal. I know it was a big deal for me. I know a big deal for you as well. Guest this week, Matthew Jordan Smith. An incredible human being with amazing accomplishments. And those accomplishments to the side, I just want to share and echo what we both felt walking away. One of the coolest people we've ever been able to sit down and to have the access to these personalities that are not just nationally known, but globally known, is an incredible experience. It's incredible for him to be candid with us and share what those moments are like. And so we have a deeper connection with those individuals as well, that we grew up either listening to their music or watching in movies. Just overall really cool.
Yeah, it was a great experience. I had a great time. My heart was so full by the end of it. And we didn't get into this much on the podcast, but Matthew Jordan Smith actually does a lot of outreach, and he has a whole bunch of different media all over the internet teaching you things and giving you inspiration and telling you about his own struggles and about like life, So he has a YouTube channel where he gives lighting lessons and all different kinds of lessons about gear. He also has a blog that he updates regularly on his website. You can find him on other photography podcasts, not just this one. And so it's just awesome to talk to such a kind and giving human being.
It was an incredible time just to sit down and share these moments and experiences with him, including being able to ask his thought process on the variety of books that he's released throughout his career: Sepia Dreams, Lost and Found, Future American President, which I didn't really know much about, but when he shared it and his process behind it, it's like when we start getting curious, like, what would children say, or what's one of the craziest things or the funniest things or most touching things that these children would say about if they were the president of America, or what they would want to enact, whether it's global peace or just free pizza on Fridays. Who knows? Who knows? I know. I don't know if that was one of those things, but I will tell you now that is in my Amazon cart. On top of what I will tell you, Janiqua, is after our conversation with him, I actually did buy both of us on Amazon his new book,
What?
Aretha Cool, for us to have.
Amazing. I love this.
Yes. So yes, we both have it. And the goal is to try to pressure him to make time to be a team leader again at next year's Eddie Adams photo workshop. So we can get that signature. And then hopefully he remembers my name is Griff and not like Brad or something else. And
I may have to rent a car then so that I can put it in a safe place because just in case, if people know that I have this thing, they might try to get into my Toyota Corolla and get it.
Right. Benny would. Benny Davis. The MC of the workshop. If he knew about it, it wouldn't be safe and it would be on eBay for all the monies for him. But anyways, that all to the side, we could go on. And we just really had a lot of incredible moments of getting to know Matthew Jordan Smith at a level that I didn't think he would give us access to. And that's just because we haven't had the opportunity to get to know him. But the second we sat down with him, the world was open up to us. And again, we're beyond thrilled. Our cups are full. And we're just excited. We're excited to get this to you. So, Janiqua, I'm going to stop rambling. And let's just go ahead and let's introduce our guest this week, Matthew Jordan Smith. Thank you for being here. Thank you for making time for us. We're as you can tell, we're pretty excited.
Yes.
I'm excited. Thank you, guys.
What I want to share with you is one, I know unlike Janiqua, because she's super confident and I get my inspiration from her, I'm nervous because my first introduction to you was when I was reintroduced back into the Eddie Adams Workshop family, and they brought me in as the social media manager. And so as I get integrated back in, the history and the legacy of the workshop and the community is vast, and it's like the ocean that you can't see the bottom to. You can't reach it if you tried to. And you're one of the first profiles and one of the first photos that come across the feed. And then one, I'm just taken back and awestruck, but two, as I get spun up more into the workshop, that you're one of the team leaders. And then so when I go to highlight the work and I peel back more of the layers like an onion, I'm just awestruck. And so fast forward getting to the workshop, I saw you a couple times walking through and I wanted to talk to you. But one, the chaos, the organized chaos that happens while we're there. But two, it's just your accomplishments and everything, and seeing from afar and spying on you from the social medias. It's scary. But then meeting you and finally working up the courage to come introduce myself as the little social media guy. You were just very kind, and you stopped amongst everyone because everyone's trying to talk to you. You stopped and you gave me a couple moments of your time. And again, I'm grateful for that. And thank you for, when you meet a titan, when you meet a hero within the industry, and then they exceed your expectations on first impressions, it's always an incredible feeling. So thank you. That's all I can.
Thank you. No, I guess it's funny because, for me, it's just like what we all doing, and the Eddie Adams Workshop is like you're around all your peers. Nobody's higher or lower. It's just you're around people who all have the same passion, and we're all in this together. And it's a great. There's nothing like the Eddie Adams Workshop. There's nothing like it. You're exhausted by the end, but you're also exhilarated by the end as well, because it's an incredible experience. So I'm just glad to be a part of it, in every way possible.
So first things first, one of the question that we always love to ask as we get things rolling, and I know Janiqua and I both love because it tells the origin story, and everyone's path, especially starting out, is different. Even though we're on the path of this passion for this craft, and one, we're walking it differently, and two, it's like everyone's introduced to it in a different way. That's always shocks us. Always we're really entertained by, and we learn from as well. And so, for you, can you share with us your origin story? Can you share with us your first introduction to photography? Was it an uncle? Was it a family member? Was it a mentor in school? Like, can you give us a peek behind the curtain?
Oh yeah, I tell you the whole nine. For me, like I was born in Brooklyn, and my family moved down south to Columbia, South Carolina when I was like 7. So there I was in
Okay.
this new like area, in the South with my at the time Brooklyn accent and not fitting in. And that went on for a few years, where I felt like just awkward. And my father saw that and introduced me to photography as a way to bridge that gap of feeling like I didn't fit in. And it helped a lot. He taught me how to use the camera. He gave me my first camera, turned the kids bathroom into like a makeshift dark room, taught me how to process my own pictures. That was the beginning for me. Then later on I was introduced to a book by Gordon Parks, The Learning Tree. And
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
that was like I got all his books at the time, but there's a Learning Tree, a choice of weapons, those things, those books by Gordon showed me that, oh, this is not just a hobby, it could be more than that. So to see somebody who looked like me doing photography at this level, it was like the light bulb being switched on for the first time. uh, that's how it began for me. So it's my dad who got me started, and I love him for that
I
because
love
that's all I've
shout
ever
out.
done now.
Shout out to all the amazing dads out there. Yeah, we can't do it without you. And that's awesome. And I just want to share this first before, again, I don't want to steal too much time away from Janiqua, but I didn't learn that until part of, again, taking over for social media for the workshop, that he actually did the giving or the learning tree. And
Mhm.
when I figured, I was
I
like just
have it.
blown away. And every child in America, some way, shape, or form, like is exposed to that incredible story, that incredible art, everything. It shapes our childhood.
Mhm.
And to now,
Yeah, it
be this
does.
far in life, to learn that from this person who was talented in every facet of what they put their energy and love into is incredible. But then to like do that, as I think it was like his first book, if I
Yeah.
recall. And I'm just like, and it was just sort of like jotted together from my understanding from what they were explaining it like on the Eddie Adams Workshop podcast when they had the speaker up. Um, Blown away. Again, I'm rambling. Sorry, Janiqua. Take it
No,
from
it's
me,
all good.
please. I'm just soaking this all. I'm soaking it all in.
No, it's titans of the industry. I was telling Griff before we got on the call. It's like, I grew up watching and seeing all of your pictures and had no idea that it was the same amazing photographer behind all of these things. And so it's so interesting. I if I showed your work to my mom, she recognizes the pictures. She just doesn't know who took them, right? So that's
Love that.
beautiful. To go back to kind of what Griff was asking earlier, when did you know that you were in love with it, and when did you start to start? I've heard you
Mm,
talk about more about the process and how you're in love with every step of making an image, or the different ways that
yes.
you make images. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, when did I know that I was in love with it? I think that came later on. It was what I just did all the time. First as a hobby, in high school as a hobby. And I think later on, like, maybe like my senior year in high school, when I think a guidance counselor said, oh, you can do this as a career. And it reminded me of the book, Gordon Parks' book. I'm like, oh, but then you're like, oh, you need that push, and that was like the little push to get me to go into art school. I went to art school in Atlanta, and I was still trying to figure it out then. I wasn't sure if I was in love with it then, but when I got to art school, I learned about the process of being a photo assistant, and that was the first time I ever heard of that. And like said, oh, if you want to be a photographer on that high level, get to a city like New York or Paris or London, and I'm hearing that in class, and I'm like, I'm going to New York. I'm going back to New York. That's where my family is anyway. So let me go back to New York. I actually dropped out of school, went to New York, and started working as a photo assistant.
Mhm.
That's
And I
wild.
think the part of being like that first love, I think it hit me then because you're surrounded by it for like the first time. I'm like, you're seeing down south. I'm seeing it in a magazine. You feel like it's far away. But when I get to New York and I'm on the set as an assistant, first an intern, then an assistant, and it becomes your life, I'm like, oh, this is what I want to do. That's when the love kicked in. Being part of a crew, you know, on set, seeing it happen and like, oh, seeing it published, I'm like, I worked on that job. I worked on that job. And that was like when the love kicked in.
Yeah, I think, we keep coming back to everybody's path is different, right? For some people, the education route is the best thing. Some people learn from experience. And what do you think was like the most impactful lessons that you learned while you were interning and being a photo
Oh,
assistant and, working those things out?
oh, so much. The working as an assistant for me was eye opening in a way that in school I was thinking about the gear and the tech and all that, but as an assistant, you see the humanity of photography. You see the connection that you have to have with the clients, with your subjects. You see the business from the ground up. What takes pre-production, pre-shoot, post-production. You see all those little things that people don't really talk about when you're in art school, and that stuff was fantastic for me. And also seeing other people work their magic. As an assistant, I worked for several photographers in New York, and everybody has their own system, their own style. And I got to see that. And I think probably the most groundbreaking breaking thing for me was to discover that you, as a photographer, you have like your own fingerprint, your own way of seeing the world. And it's your job to put that out there, to show the world how you feel visually. And even later on, even now, I see all these assignments throughout the years. It's not just my thumbprint. It's like my legacy. It's like my life.
Yeah, that I definitely identify with, and I feel like because I'm towards the end of my Air Force career, so I'm a grandpa on the Air Force timeline, and so because I'll press the button this year, which means that a year from October I'll be retired and I'll be done.
Oh wow.
And but as I go back and I look at the very beginning of my career as little airman Griffin and the pictures that I took, I wish I had that forethought then that I have now. Because I feel like at the beginning, again, I'm just focused on things that are important to me at the moment. But if I felt like if I had the growth and the maturity to adapt and with my ambition and my drive and passion, I feel like I'd have a better representation of my legacy towards that for my Air Force career at the beginning.
Yeah.
But again, no regrets. No, I don't regret it because again, I'm happy with where I'm at now with the decisions that I made. But again, like I appreciate you sharing that because I really identify with that. And I know at least when I work on this next chapter of my life, I'm gonna try to go at it strong, and and so I don't look back at the second half of whatever is going to be in my professional career, and I'm going to be proud of it. I'm going to be proud from the prologue to the very end. This break is brought to you by the Eddie Adams Workshop. Applications for the prestigious Eddie Adams Workshop are now open until May 31st. Join a community of aspiring photographers, learn from industry leaders, and elevate your craft. Don't miss this opportunity. Apply today at eddieadamsworkshop.org.
Yes, that's how it is. That's how it is. And I think we all wish we could go back and change things for sure. That's just like life. But
All right. Mm-hmm.
that is part of it. Like your growth happens by seeing like, oh, I could have done this, or I should have done that. And then from that point on, you keep making those adjustments. That's just all of our path.
That, I
So,
think, in realizing that sometimes there's some bangers back there that you didn't recognize, you didn't know.
Always.
Yeah. The other thing that I was going to ask is, looking back, because you have had all those like miraculous moments and all those like being able to capture great moments. Um, each of your photo books is very different from the other. Can you talk about like
Yes.
how you've approached each of those? I guess how you've approached each of that work and like what made you want to build that body of work during that time?
It's funny, like, you in photography, you can get put into like this, like, uh, category, you be pigeonholed and like doing one thing. But with books, you can do anything you want to do. Um, Going back even to being a photo assistant, it was this photographer, Chuck Baker, who told me on a plane as well, like coming back from a job, he's like, you know, the the best advice I can give you is to do something that I did not do. He said, do books during your photo career. He says, because having a book puts work out there in a different way and to a different audience. People who don't know you, who may not ever know you as if you're in the photo world, do books and do books on things that you care about or that you want to be involved in. Or, I'm like, okay. So my first book, um, believe it or not, it's kind of inspired by Gordon Parks. My first book, Sepia Dreams, was about people sharing their dreams about how they got started. Did they ever want to quit? Was it difficult? All those questions. So I asked 50 African American celebrities that question and got them all to like tell me their story about how they got started, their ups and downs. Like, it's Sam Jackson, it's Vanessa Williams, it's Tyra, it's like all these different people, in the industry. And this book came out in 2001, right before 9/11, as a matter of fact.
oh wow.
And actually, the month after 9/11 it came out. And it was, I wanted to know those stories myself. I'm like, okay, if I want to know these stories, let me put it out there and marry my pictures with the stories. And that's what happened with that one. Second one was called Lost and Found. And that was a book I did in partnership with Microsoft. Microsoft was working on this altruistic project where they had uh, connected with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. So I went around America to families who've gone through an abduction or lost a child.
Jeez.
So it's a heavy book, heavy book. But that was not my idea. That was an idea I worked with Microsoft and American Photos as well at the time. And then my third book was Future American President. And I had the idea of inspiring kids, like by, photography is funny, You take a picture of somebody and it's like putting them on blast. They're like highlight, they feel important. I'm like, oh, what would that feel like to a kid to have that experience? Like, I know what it feels like for an adult or for a celebrity, to be on a photo shoot. They feel like, okay, I'm out there, I'm being seen, and kids sometimes are not seen. So I'm like, let me go around, find 100 strangers, kids, and photograph them and ask them what would they do if they were a future American president. It was not a political thing at all. I just want to like
Yeah.
inspire kids to do anything, be anybody, even a future American president. So that was the question. I got in my car and rented cars and went to every state in America, all 50, and found 100 kids. So I'd ask the parents, and I'm asking strangers, can I photograph their kid about this book project? And that was scary, the idea of that. And then, it came to be. And my current book now, which came out a little over a week ago, was is about a client who I've worked for a long time, Aretha Franklin. I worked with her for 13 years. And when I first met her, I met her in 2004. When I first met her, I gave her at the time, my first book as a gift at the end of the shoot. I gave her,
Wow.
Sepia Dreams. And she's looking at the book in the studio and she says, why am I not in this book? Because it's like, it's like 50 big celebrities. And she's like, why am I not in this book?
Oh, yeah, you didn't probably
She
think
puts
of
me on the
that
spot.
when you came
So I'm like, I'm like, Miss Franklin, I promise you, I'm going to fix that one day. So, years later, we worked together for like 13 years, become close, become tight. And I'm like, okay, I've got to honor her. Now she's passed away. I've got to honor her by putting this work out there. And I think COVID also made me see that, we don't know what happens tomorrow. Like, what if I die during COVID and these stories, these pictures, they're lost forever. Let me put this stuff out there. So the new book I'm doing now, which I have right beside me, Aretha Cool.
I love it.
This book is me honoring the Queen of Soul. So it's like, pictures and stories behind the scenes to show not just like the Queen of Soul as being the superstar, musician and artist, but to show like, the real side, the humanity and that connection from a photographer's point of view. So that's what this book is all about. It's I want people to have that experience of what it was like to be in the room with her, because it was very different. I've shot a lot of celebrities, but I never had the connection that I have with Aretha, because there was no manager to talk to or agent. She would always call me personally and talk about ideas, what she wanted, what she was going to wear, all that. And in between, we talk about like, what we're eating, what shows she's watching on TV, and, all that real stuff. So it was a really cool connection that you rarely have with somebody at that stature. And I want to share that with everybody, because, her music was so profound. I mean, around the world. You guys know I live in Japan, and to have her music cross borders, I mean, it's just insane to see. Europe, America, Asia, people are just super fans of her music, and when you think about how it's touched people, I want to share that. So what was so cool about all those photo sessions with her, for everybody, I've always made a music list of, who I should play when I shoot, because it affects everybody. I don't care if it's Zendaya or
Right.
I mean, I think about those shoots, and there's music tied to that shoot. I think about Zendaya. I know the song I was playing when I shot her. I think about Oprah. I know the song I was playing when I shot her. Same with Aretha. But the cool thing about Aretha versus everybody else, especially music artists, most music artists don't want to hear their music. Aretha did.
Very
And that changes the whole thing.
Very interesting.
That changes the whole experience, because you're with this artist, you're playing their music, you're grooving to it inside, but to see them have that same experience as you, that's profound. So I put together this list on an iPod, which I still have today. This is my old
I love it.
iPod.
Oh, wow.
Check it out.
Yes.
Yep. This is my old iPod.
Condition too,
Right. That's pristine.
I keep it charged up. Because this has, Oprah's music list. This has Aretha's music list. This has Tyler's music list. That's wild. And I can't update it anymore. So it's like, in time, forever frozen. And with Aretha, I had my favorite Aretha Franklin songs that I played on every single shoot. And she would react to those songs. She's like digging the songs like we're digging the songs. And sometimes as I'm shooting her, she'd start humming along like I'm humming along. And sometimes she starts singing along. So to get those pictures as she's in that moment, that's cool. So with this new book, I want to have people experience all of that. So I made a list on Spotify. I put all the songs that are on here on that Aretha Franklin list. I called it Aretha Cool Spotify list. So people can look through, they can play the list, hear the same music in the order that I played it for Aretha, and go through the book and have that experience.
It's truly intimate. That is a level of intimacy that you're bringing to that collection of work that I don't think I rarely see in any kind of thing. And so, and it has purpose and it has value. And because of that relation, like you shared that connection to these specific events, it's like it's almost all encompassing. It's full circle, and it's not like you're just getting one access point into this experience. It's like your ears are taking it in, your eyes are taking it in, and then to your own emotional attachment to these songs yourself actually are going to play a part of that as well. So that's incredibly thoughtful. I have a lot to take away from just that and just this question in general. And again, thank you, Janiqua, for like about the books. There was so many questions I have that I want to peek behind the curtain. One, starting with her, is there a specific experience that you had happen? You're like, as a younger man, I would never picture myself in this position to just to call someone genuinely a friend, this titan, this incredible human being that has inspired the world in different ways. And you're just calling this person a genuine friend. But like, can you share a specific experience that just really still had you flabbergasted, even though you guys were comfortable around each other?
Yes, I can share quite a few. I think the first moment where it really sunk in and hit me that we had a connection was it's the middle of the night and I get a phone call. And I grab the phone, like, groggy, and it's Aretha Franklin. And I'm like,
Waking up quick.
Miss Franklin? Yeah. And she says, oh, Jordan, she called me by my middle name. She said, Jordan, I'm having a problem. And I thought I had done something wrong. I'm like, uh-oh, what did I do? And she says, I'm stuck between these two names for my new album. What do you think is better? And I'm like,
like who am I for you to ask me
exactly
about my lowly opinion? Like,
right. So, I mean, it shook me up. Number one, I was like almost in tears because like she's asking me for my opinion on her album, what she should call it. I mean, that's how close photography can make you to a subject, because it is very intimate. And when people trust you at that level, with their image, which is very important. Most people will never see her in person or never get that close to her. The pictures are their way of getting closer to this icon. So it's a big deal for that person to trust you with their image. And that also makes them trust you with other things. Your opinion matters. How you feel matters, So that definitely bonded us closer, I think, at that point. To the point where, I was on a shoot once and I'm shooting her and we're close at this point, and a song comes on that I love as I'm shooting her. I'm like 4 feet in front of her and she starts singing. She first starts humming the song. She starts singing along. And I'm like, doing my thing, shooting her. And behind my camera, I start singing along too. And she's like, hold up, Jordan, baby, don't sing. She's telling me like, don't mess up my song. Stay in your lane. You do photography, I sing, but don't make it twisted here. So
I love it. I love it.
But we were close, so it was like, it was funny because everybody's dying laughing, including Aretha, laughing at me for trying to sing her song. But it just bonded us. And there are many moments like that we had that I can go through, and all that's in the book. It's just like with photography, it makes you closer. The other thing that's so cool about this, and I didn't think about this until now. I shot her from 2004 until she passed away, and that period in photography was, film photography to digital photography. There's a lot of change in that period in our world of photography. So I have this archive of film images on her, chrome images, negatives, and then digital. I don't have that on a lot of people like that. But with her, I have that whole photographic history, that period of time that we probably still don't think about now, but to get that period on one person on those different types of photographic media, it's kind of profound.
It's It's incredible. And again, I guess I have a question I have for you specifically about that is like through the growth and I guess, and that's a boring word, but the modernization and the evolution of the camera and and how they've gone to the digital format, it sucked at the beginning.
Yeah.
And so so as you're
Yes.
being introduced to these opportunities to use these new camera systems, but you can get it done with film. Were you ever conflicted when it came to covering her and having to choose between the two formats?
Yes, especially at the very beginning of digital. I didn't trust it yet. So I'd have both cameras on set. I'd have like a digital camera at first, and then I end up shooting mostly film because I felt very comfortable with film. It's kind of funny now, like, being here in Japan, everybody in their 20s, they're all shooting film. I mean, Japan, film is huge. I went on a photo walk with some photographers the other day. They're all in their 20s, and me, and I went with them. We went to a camera store.
22 years old.
Yeah, right. They're buying film, and one was $27 for one roll of film. I'm like, oh my god,
jeez,
$27 for a roll of film.
Wow.
I mean, it definitely make you put your
One
thought,
roll.
into every single shot.
Yes. Every frame, you're thoughtful, but that's how it was back in the day. You were very thoughtful about every frame that you shot. Because you're like, even back then it was like, maybe $3 a roll back in the day, but still you're thinking about every frame that you shoot. You're not wasting like, oh yeah, I'll shoot this just in case. None of that.
Yeah. So I do, and I have one more question before because I don't want to hijack too many questions away from Janiqua. But going back to the kids, and you ask them questions, about being a future president, and I'm sure we think of like potential responses and clever responses and funny responses. Can you share, or can you recall like a response or a moment you had with one of these children that sort of just left you speechless in a funny way or in an inspiring way? Because for me, like, I definitely want to get my hands on that. And again, these experiences are special, they're intimate, and they're unique. And again, you highlighting in a way that, like you said, they don't necessarily get the same attention, and the attention that they received to me is, again, it's thoughtful. But can you share any kind of moment like that with us?
Oh yeah, you're taking me back down memory lane here. Like, it's so funny because like, to photograph all these kids, I've got to approach the parents. So I'm going around America, like, going to like, a lot of the parks, around America, and I'd ask the parent, tell them what I'm doing, showing my past books. I brought my past books with me to show that I'm like that's some crazy person.
I'm not strange. I'm not a weird.
I want to have
right.
their child.
No stranger danger here.
Exactly. But when I'm doing the photo shoot of their child, I mean, the parents are there watching their child. They're proud at this point. And then I ask their child this question, and the responses would very often shock the parents. That's the part that got me. Because even the parents are like, oh, wow, my child just said this, and you could see them like, become more proud of their child. And sometimes parents in tears, hearing their child speak, and also having their child be on the spotlight. Because here I'm in a park, I've got my lights, camera, meter, and everybody's around watching as I photograph that child. Think about that, what that feels like for that child. And then people around watching like, oh, who is this person? Who's this kid? They feel important. They feel seen. So very often they'd say like things that, maybe like, oh yeah, I give everybody ice cream or whatever, but because they're like young kids.
Right.
But they're real honest, sincere answers. World peace, which sounds like so like, whatever, but that's a big deal. I mean, what would the world be like to have really just world peace? Kids talk from the heart, honestly.
No filters.
Thinking like these, no filters. That's kind of cool to see. And then watch them grow up. Like, those kids who I shot, I did this book back in 2000. 2013 to 2014. I was doing that book. Came out 2014.
Okay.
So, a lot of these kids, they're now, if they were like 10, they're like, 19, 20 now.
Mhm.
This one, and when I meet these families, I move them for like maybe 15 minutes at the most
Hmm.
before I go on to the next person. But you had this profound impact on these kids. I met this one family I met in Colorado. They're out and they're in their tent. They're been out backpacking, the whole family. They're right by the Colorado River. And I stopped the family and I photographed the little girl. That little girl is now a photographer in the Marines.
Wow.
She sent me an email like 2 years ago and said that 15-minute encounter had this profound impact on her and she wanted to be a photographer. And she's now in the Marines as a photographer. Kind of blows you away,
what I
That's
want to do,
amazing.
what I want to do is, so when it definitely fits into schedule, and because I don't know if she's ever been to the Eddie Adams workshop, but and I know for next year's workshop or anything like that, like if you have the availability and you're at the workshop, and that we'll track her down, make sure she submits a portfolio, because
I'll send you her
like there's
information.
and so, they have the military specific, they leave a couple seats for military members. And so they'll, out of the 100, they'll carve out 2 or 3. And then if she puts in, and if she's doing good work, if there's any way, we can facilitate like a reunion, especially in a very unique, special place like that. Talk about full circle. Talk about,
I'm
Yeah.
getting
I'm gonna
chills
cry.
now.
I'm gonna
Thinking about
cry.
that.
That's
I'll cry.
amazing.
That's
That is amazing.
yeah, no, it's incredible, and to have this huge world and hundreds of millions of people, and for you to go through that moment in time, you could have been there an hour later and missed them, and then they're in the Marine Corps now,
Absolutely.
and the same craft that Janiqua and I are in as military photographers, and to be able to potentially even now meet one of these people's from your stories you shared with us. I'm motivated. I know both of us were driven. And again, if we
Oh,
can make
yes.
something happen, because, I get selfishly, I want to be part of that story. I want to be there. And, but no, yeah, again, Janiqua, I'm going to pass it off to you. I'm just going to soak this in for
How
a
am I
minute.
supposed to follow that? There's no way I can't follow that. What am I supposed to ask now? I can't do anything with that. Set me up. No, I do think that is incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah, that is. We got to figure that one out for sure. I was gonna
That'd
ask
be
you.
cool.
Yeah, for sure. I was gonna ask you about, the sepia dreams and stuff. Like, I think sometimes, celebrities get asked kind of like the same things over and over and over again, right? So I'm
Yes.
sure for some of them, that question and asking them about, did they ever want to give up? And I guess, pressing into that, making it more intimate, right? I'm sure that took a couple of people aback. But what were some of the moments that kind of stuck with you from that?
Oh
And
man,
some of the stories that kind of, I guess, fortified your resolve? Because I think, it's one thing to think about it from the perspective of just asking somebody about their story, right? But this common thing that we have, being Black in this country, it takes it to a whole nother level.
it's another
So I'm
level
curious about what
altogether.
that did for you.
Oh, I those stories. Now, I did that book in 2000. Came out 2001. Actually, just started in 1999 and spent like 2 years working on that project. But those stories are with me forever because most celebrities are being asked questions about whatever project they're working on at the moment. So they're used to answering for about a movie or whatever. But I wasn't asking about that at all. I'm asking like, their beginnings, did they ever want to quit? So I remember this one interview with Samuel L. Jackson. I'm in his movie trailer. He's doing Shaft and I'm interviewing him. And he tells me this story. He came up with like these other big actors like Denzel, like Morgan Freeman. They were all doing Broadway. And he watched them take off, and he wasn't taking off. He got depressed about that. He's like, everybody around me is like doing so well in the craft. And he said he wanted to quit. And he did quit. He actually fell into drugs, and he was going down this other path. And his wife and his friends, really put him aside and like kind of like helped him get past that period. And he said, it was at that point where I'm like, okay, his wife told him like, you don't act because you want to be famous. You act because you love the craft of acting. He says, and that's true. He says, and at that point, I started taking everything. I didn't say no to any project because I loved, the craft of being an actor. So I just started like taking on everything. I didn't say no to any role. And he said, that was my turnaround. He said, I quit. I was giving up on it. And then I came back with this new thing like, oh, I'm not doing this to be famous. I'm doing this because I love this art form. I love acting. So he said, I don't have to be famous to do that. I can do that anywhere. Started doing more and more of that. And then things started taking off for him. And he told me about this movie he did. He said, I said, oh, when did you make it? He says, it's a funny thing, that whole thing of feeling like you make it. He says, I did this movie. The first person people hear in the movie, first one they see in the movie. He says, and then the movie's out, and I'm walking down the street with one of the guys in the movie. He says, we're walking down by West 4th Street in New York City, and everybody's stopping us, but not for me, for the other character, because the other guy is the main character in the movie. He says they're asking for his autograph. He says, I'm right beside him, and they're asking for his autograph, but not mine. So my buddy says, oh, he's in the movie too. So they look at him, and they're like, oh, you are? Kind of crazy, right? So then he says, like, to go fast forward to now, that same situation, people, it would probably definitely be the other way around. He's like, because the movie was like, Spike Lee's movie where it's like the fight and everybody in Brooklyn, and I can't think of the name of the movie now.
Thing.
Do the right thing.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
He's the DJ
yes.
that opens up the movie. You hear his voice, you see his face, but he wasn't that famous at the time.
Nope.
So the movie comes out, and people see him on the street and don't even ask for his autograph. That's the other guy who's Radio Raheem's character asking him for his autograph and not Sam Jackson. Kind of funny thinking about that now.
Right, because like knowing who Sam Jackson is now, watching that movie now, as soon as you hear it, you know his voice. You know, because you've seen him in so many other things. So as soon as it opens up, you know exactly who that is. So it's so crazy coming full circle like that.
Right, that fame thing, like, and making it. Because he was talking about, when do you know you make it? And he's like, you don't know sometimes. It just happens, when it happens. And it happens at stages. And he's right about that. There's so many stories from that book with so many different people. Gordon Parks. I interviewed Gordon Parks. He's in my book, my first book. So him talking about, fear. This one stays with me a lot. He's like, I didn't know how to do photography. I didn't know how to be a composer. I didn't know how to be a director. I just did it. He said, I was fearful, but I didn't let fear get in the way and stop me. And that's profound, because very often the fear in your head keeps you from making that next step. You just talk yourself out of it before you even try. And he's like, oh, no, everybody has that. It's part of the process. And even throughout doing all those interviews in Sepia Dreams, everybody has that fear. You got to push past that, and you just do it. And they're right about that. Even for me on the smaller level, like, doing these books, I've been fearful about all of them and almost talked myself out of doing all of them. But then, you get past that, and you work through it, and then you have the physical book in your hand. There's nothing like that. and then you put it out in the world, this thing you've worked on, on your own in front of your computer and in your room, in your office, in your home. It's just you and that work. You put it out there and the whole world sees it. It's a pretty wild feeling.
So I have a question, and definitely looking to hopefully inspire the younger generation or the emerging talent in the space. Are you saying that regardless of where you're at in your path, that these things always exist? It's things that you're always going to have to overcome, and it's and can you sort of shed light on how you approach that, and how a young individual who's may just be starting in the craft can take that advice from you and pull part of that into themselves to try to create success for them? How's it going, Long Roll family? I just wanted to jump in here to let you know that we've run across some technological challenges when it comes to the last portion of this episode with Matthew Jordan Smith. So unfortunately, this will conclude the episode, but I promise you, if we can get this last portion figured out, we'll have it updated and we'll let you know. We do hope you enjoyed this week's episode and hope to see you here next week. I want to thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Long Roll Podcast. A huge shout out goes to my co-host, Janiqua Robinson, again, carrying us to the finish line, creating another incredible episode I know you all loved. But most importantly, thank you to our audience, our listeners, our subscribers. Without you, none of this is possible. And so if you really love this episode, you enjoy what we're doing here, please support us by sharing with your friends, family, anyone that you know that you think that will also enjoy this just as much as you do. And with that, I bid you adieu as we get ready to prepare for the second season. We hope to see you back here soon.